The hot wind blew across the desert of Zephyr 9, carrying with it clouds of red dust that stung the skin. Jace Rylan, a lone human cowboy, rode his old hoverhorse through the endless dunes. He had been traveling for days looking for supplies and shelter, but the planet offered little comfort. The sun burned fiercely overhead, and the distant horizon shimmered in waves of heat. He adjusted his wide-brimmed hat and squinted against the glare. Something moved ahead, small and strange, barely visible through the haze. As he drew closer, Jace slowed his mount. The figure was not human. It was something larger, with wings folded tightly against its body and scales that glinted in the sun. It was a dragon, but not like the ones he had read about in old galactic records. This dragon was smaller, injured, and afraid. Its golden eyes darted around nervously, nostrils flaring as if sensing danger. Jace felt a cautious thrill. Dragons were rare and mysterious creatures, and to see one here, alone in the desert, was almost impossible. Jace dismounted slowly, keeping his hands visible. He carried a small bag of water and dried food. The dragon hissed softly, a low, uncertain sound. It backed toward a pile of rusted metal, hiding among the remains of what must have been an old mining outpost. Jace stopped a few meters away. "Easy, friend," he said gently. His voice was calm, steady. "I'm not here to hurt you." He reached into his bag and pulled out a small container of water, holding it out. The dragon tilted its head but did not move closer. Jace poured a little water onto the sand, forming a shallow pool. The dragon sniffed the air, then bent down and lapped at the water cautiously. Its tongue was rough and its golden scales shimmered as it drank. Jace watched quietly, letting the dragon gain confidence. After a few moments he placed a piece of dried meat on the ground. The dragon hesitated, glancing at him and then at the food. Finally it stepped forward and took the meat, crunching it slowly. Jace allowed himself a small smile. This was a start. He had read that dragons responded to patience and respect, and he hoped that was true here. Jace noticed the dragon's wings were tattered, and one of its legs was cut, leaving a trail of blood in the sand. Whoever or whatever had attacked it had left it weak and scared. Jace knelt down, making sure not to seem threatening. "You've been through a lot," he murmured. He pulled a small medical kit from his saddlebag and cleaned the wound as best as he could. The dragon flinched but did not try to attack. It seemed to understand that Jace wanted to help. Once the wound was bandaged, Jace sat back on the sand. He studied the dragon carefully. It had no collar, no markings, and no signs of an owner or master. He wondered how it had survived alone in this harsh desert. He also noticed something strange, a faint glow emanating from beneath its scales near the dragon's chest. It was a small fragment of metal, jagged and old, yet it pulsed with energy. Jace had never seen anything like it. He pulled the fragment from his satchel and held it up. The dragon's eyes widened and it took a step back, wings twitching nervously. Jace whispered, This is part of something you lost long ago. A ship, a place, a secret. I don't know everything, but it's yours." The dragon stared at him, tilting its head. It did not understand the words, but it sensed the importance. Its tail flicked slightly, betraying curiosity mixed with fear. Jace rested his hand on the dragon's shoulder. He did not force it, only let it feel his presence. "We'll get through this together," he said softly. "I don't know what happened to you or why you've been alone, but I promise I'll help." The dragon blinked slowly, a gesture that seemed to indicate trust, or at least the beginning of it. The sun began to sink toward the horizon, turning the sky into a canvas of reds and oranges. The desert grew colder and the wind shifted, carrying the scent of distant rock formations and dry riverbeds. Jace knew he could not stay here overnight. It was too dangerous for both of them. He looked around and spotted a small cave in the side of a cliff, just a short ride away. It was not much, but it would provide shelter from the elements. "Come on," he said, patting his hoverhorse. The dragon hesitated at first, then followed. Its steps were careful, the injured leg making a slow, uneven rhythm in the sand. Jace kept pace, glancing back to make sure it was keeping up. The desert was quiet except for the crunch of sand under their feet and the distant howl of wind through the rocks. As they reached the cave, Jace set up a small fire using a portable ignition unit. The dragon watched curiously, the glow of the flames reflecting in its golden eyes. Jace offered some of the food again and the dragon ate, more confident now. He could feel the connection forming, fragile but real. The fragment in his hand pulsed faintly again, almost as if responding to the dragon's presence. Jace leaned against the rock wall, exhausted but alert. "Tomorrow we'll explore the ruins nearby," he said softly. "Maybe we'll find more answers about this ship and about you." The dragon curled its tail around its body and closed its eyes, finally resting after the long day. Jace watched the flames dance and thought about the road ahead. The desert was vast, dangerous, and full of unknowns, but for the first time he felt that he was not alone. The dragon beside him, silent yet aware, was proof that even in the emptiest places connection could be found. As night fell and the stars emerged over Zephyr 9, the desert seemed less hostile. The dragon's breathing was steady, and Jace's mind raced with questions. Who had left this dragon alone? What secret did the fragment hold? And could he, a simple human cowboy, guide a creature of legend toward the truth? He did not know the answers yet, but he felt something stirring, a bond that neither time, distance, nor danger could easily break. For now they rested. Tomorrow the journey would begin. But tonight, in the quiet of the desert, a human and a dragon sat side by side, each learning to trust in the other, each aware that the sands of Zephyr 9 held more mysteries than either of them could imagine. The morning sun rose over the desert of Zephyr 9, painting the dunes in gold and orange. Jace Ryland packed his small supplies and checked on the dragon. Its golden scales shimmered in the light, and it moved more steadily now, though the injured leg still slowed it down. Jace carried the glowing fragment carefully in his hand. It pulsed faintly, almost alive, and he felt its energy pull him forward, as if urging them toward something hidden in the desert. They moved through narrow canyons, the wind carrying clouds of dust that stung their eyes. The dragon, whom Jace had started calling Leary, stayed close to him. She was silent, watching him carefully as if she understood more than she let on. Jace thought about the fragment again. He had no idea why it was connected to her, only that it was important. Something about the object and Leary seemed linked, as if part of her memory was trapped inside it. Leary, Jace said softly, I don't know exactly what this is, but it belonged to a ship. A ship that was lost years ago. Maybe it was yours, maybe it wasn't. But it's important. We need to find it. Leary tilted her head, wings twitching, and stepped closer. She sniffed the fragment, then looked at him with wide, curious eyes. Jace smiled, sensing that she felt the urgency even if she did not understand the words. As they traveled, the landscape began to change. The soft sand of the desert became harder and more jagged, rocks rising from the ground like broken teeth. Jace led them toward a series of rusted metal ruins, half buried in sandstorms long ago. These were remnants of old mining stations and abandoned outposts, relics of a war that had scarred the planet decades before. The fragment glowed brighter as they approached, humming softly, reacting to the energy in the ruins. Jace set the fragment on a flat rock, letting it pulse in the morning light. This ship, he explained, kneeling beside it, was not just any ship. It carried secrets, plans, knowledge, things some people wanted destroyed. I think it was abandoned here for a reason. And I think you are connected to it, Leary. Maybe you were there when it happened, maybe it belongs to your past. I don't know yet. Leary sniffed at the fragment again, her wings twitching as if she remembered something deep inside. Jace could see flashes of recognition in her golden eyes, but nothing concrete. She stepped closer to him and nudged his shoulder gently, a small gesture of trust. Jace patted her head. We'll figure it out together, he said. Suddenly, a shadow moved across the rocks ahead. Jace froze. He had expected scavengers or bandits in this area, and sure enough, a group of humans appeared, armed with makeshift weapons and scavenger drones. Their leader, a tall figure in tattered armor, raised a hand. Step away from that fragment, he shouted. That belongs to us now. Jace's heart raced, but he remained calm. He reached slowly into his satchel and produced a small energy pistol, enough to warn them not to kill. Leary growled, low and warning, her tail lashing against the sand. The scavengers hesitated. The fragment pulsed brightly, almost as if it was alive, and Leary stepped closer to Jace, her wings spreading slightly. This is not yours, Jace said firmly. I don't know what it is, but it belongs to her. Leave and no one gets hurt. The scavengers laughed, thinking it was just a human bluff. But then the fragment emitted a strong pulse of energy. It threw a wave of heat that knocked the closest scavenger off his feet. Leary roared, flames flickering from her mouth, small but bright, and the scavengers scrambled back in shock. Jace took the opportunity to lead Leary through a narrow path between the rocks, the scavengers too stunned to follow. As they moved, Jace glanced at Leary. You're stronger than I thought, he said with a grin. She didn't understand his words, but she felt the encouragement and followed him faithfully. The fragment's energy pulsed again, guiding them through the maze of ruins. Jace realized that the object might be showing them the path to the forsaken ship, but he could not be sure. All he knew was that danger was everywhere and they had to stay alert. By midday they found shelter in a small alcove beneath a collapsed tower. Jace fed Lyri some dried meat and water and she ate quickly, regaining her strength. He examined the fragment, turning it over in his hands. It was strange metal, etched with symbols he didn't understand. Lines of energy ran along its surface, connecting the fragment to something much larger, perhaps the ship itself. Jace could feel a story hidden inside, but it was incomplete. "I don't know all the answers yet," he admitted, speaking aloud even though Lyri could not fully understand. "But we're going to find out. Whatever this ship was, whatever it did, it's part of you. Part of your story. And I think the galaxy needs to know it." Lyri nudged his hand again, her way of showing agreement. The wind picked up and sand blew across the alcove. Jace covered the fragment carefully and watched the dragon stretch her wings. Her movements were stronger now, more confident. He felt a flicker of hope. Maybe together they could uncover the secrets of the forsaken ship. Maybe, just maybe, the dragon who had been lost for decades could reclaim her past and find her purpose again. Night fell over Zephyr 9, and the desert grew cold and silent. Jace lit a small fire, careful not to attract attention. Lyri curled beside him, resting her head near his feet. The fragment glowed faintly between them, a silent reminder of the journey ahead. Jace stared at the stars above, thinking of the ship, the fragment, and the hidden story that had waited so long to be discovered. Tomorrow he promised himself they would move closer to the ruins. They would follow the fragment's energy, face whatever dangers lay ahead, and begin to uncover the mystery of the forsaken ship. For now, the human and the dragon sat together in quiet trust, connected by the unknown, preparing for the adventure that would change both their lives forever. The sun rose slowly over the jagged rocks of Zephyr 9, casting long shadows across the desert. Jace Rylan adjusted his hat and checked Lyri's injured leg. She moved more confidently now, her golden scales shining in the morning light. The fragment in his hand pulsed softly, a constant reminder that it was guiding them somewhere. Jace had no idea what they would find, but he felt that the ruins of the forsaken ship were close. The desert stretched endlessly before them, but Jace had learned to read the signs. The shape of the rocks, the way the wind shifted, even the faint traces of old footprints in the sand. Lyri followed quietly, her eyes scanning the horizon. Every so often she would glance at the fragment, wings twitching with curiosity. Jace smiled. She was beginning to sense the importance of the object, even if she didn't fully understand it yet. They reached a wide plain where sandstorms had uncovered remnants of an old landing pad. Broken metal beams jutted from the ground, and the fragments of a ship's hull were scattered across the dunes. Jace knelt and examined the fragments. Symbols were etched into the metal, strange and angular, glowing faintly in the morning sun. The fragment in his hand pulsed faster, as if excited to be near its origin. "Lyri, this is it," Jace whispered. "Somewhere among this wreckage is your past, your story. I don't know how much you'll remember, but we have to try." The dragon stepped closer, sniffing at the ground, her wings spread slightly as if ready to take flight. Jace carefully laid the fragment on a piece of metal and watched as it reacted to Lyri's presence. Energy pulsed along the lines etched in the fragment, connecting it to the scattered ruins. As they explored, they discovered signs of old battles. The ground was scorched in places, and deep scratches marked the metal, as if powerful claws had fought here long ago. Jace felt a chill. "This ship wasn't just abandoned," he said softly. "It was attacked, and left here for a reason. Someone didn't want it to survive." Lyri growled, low and warning, sensing the danger in the air. Suddenly, a section of sand shifted violently. Jace grabbed Lyri's shoulder just as a small group of scavenger drones rose from the dunes, their metal bodies clanking and whirring. The drones scanned the area, detecting movement. Jace pulled a small energy pistol from his belt, aiming carefully, but he did not fire. Lyri stepped forward, wings flaring, her eyes glowing. Flames flickered from her mouth, bright but controlled, and the drones hesitated. The fragment pulsed violently, sending a wave of energy through the sand. One of the drones toppled, its circuits sparking. The others backed off, confused and damaged. Jace used the distraction to lead Lyri through a narrow passage between metal beams, deeper into the ruins. The desert wind whipped around them, carrying clouds of dust that stung their eyes, but they moved quickly, guided by the fragment's energy. As they reached a partially buried hangar, Jace stopped and examined the metal door. It was cracked and bent, but he could see the faint glow of the fragment reacting to it. "This has to be the ship," he said, kneeling beside the door. "It's been waiting for you, for decades. I think it knows you're here." Leary sniffed the door, then nudged it gently with her snout. The metal creaked, but it did not give way. Jace studied the symbols etched into the door. They were similar to those on the fragment, but more complete, telling a story in lines of light he could almost read. "I can't understand it," he said aloud. "But I think it's about you, your creation, maybe even your purpose. You were never just any dragon, Leary. You were made for something important." The dragon tilted her head, her golden eyes wide and focused. She had no memory of this, but she felt the energy, the connection, and it stirred something inside her. He carefully placed the fragment on the ground in front of the door. It pulsed stronger, beams of light connecting to the etched symbols on the metal. Jace watched in awe as the energy formed faint images, flashes of fire, shadows of people, and a small ship hovering over the desert long ago. Leary growled softly, wings trembling. Something deep inside her stirred, a memory she could not yet name. The wind howled through the ruins, carrying the scent of metal and old dust. Jace felt the tension building. He knew that more scavengers could be nearby, attracted by the fragment's energy. He whispered to Leary, "We have to be careful. This place is dangerous, but it's the only way to learn the truth." The dragon's tail flicked, a sign she understood. She crouched low, ready to move at his signal. They explored the hangar carefully. Inside, pieces of the ship lay scattered, panels torn from the hull, instruments broken, and strange containers that hummed faintly. Jace examined one of the containers and noticed a faded insignia. "This ship, it carried secrets," he said, voice low. "Knowledge, maybe technology, things that could change a planet. And you were part of it somehow." Leary sniffed the container and nudged it gently with her snout. The fragment pulsed again, reacting to her touch. Hours passed as they pieced together what they could. The sun moved lower, casting long shadows across the sand. Jace and Leary rested beside the fragment, exhausted but alert. "Tomorrow we go deeper," he said. "We'll find more, and maybe you'll understand who you really are." Leary curled beside him, her wings folding over her body. She had no words, no understanding yet, but she felt the truth in the fragment, in Jace's voice, and in the desert itself. Night fell, and the desert became quiet, the wind whispering through the metal ruins. The stars above Zephyr 9 shimmered, reflecting in Leary's golden eyes. Jace covered the fragment carefully, protecting it from the cold. He thought about the ship, the energy, and the memories waiting to awaken inside Leary. For the first time since finding her, Jace felt that the journey had real purpose. The dragon who had been lost for decades was beginning to remember, even if only in flashes. The forsaken ship had secrets, and together they would uncover them. But danger lingered, hidden in the sand and in the shadows of the desert. The echoes of the past were calling, and both human and dragon knew they were part of something far greater than themselves. Tomorrow the search would continue. The fragments of memory, the scattered ship, and the secrets waiting beneath the sand would guide them, and Leary would take the first steps toward understanding her true destiny. The desert was vast, harsh, and unforgiving, but it could not hide the truth forever. Jace and Leary were ready to face whatever lay ahead. The sun had just begun to rise over the ruins, painting the desert in pale orange and gold. Jace Ryland tightened his satchel straps and checked Leary's wings. She stretched them fully, her golden scales catching the first light. The fragment in his hand pulsed stronger than ever, as if it knew today would be the day the secret was revealed. Jace felt a mixture of excitement and fear. He had been searching for answers for years, but he did not know if Leary was ready for the truth. They moved carefully through the scattered remains of the ship, the metal groaning under the wind. Panels were twisted, and instruments long dead lay half buried in sand. Jace paused at a small control console, the fragment's energy connecting to it like a key in a lock. Beams of light shot from the fragment into the symbols on the console. Faint images appeared in the air, holographic projections of the past. Leary stepped forward cautiously, nostrils flaring as she sniffed at the glowing symbols. Her tail twitched and her wings lifted slightly. Jace whispered, "It's okay, Leary. You're going to see everything. Your story." The dragon blinked at him, her golden eyes wide as if she could sense the importance of the moment. The holograms grew clearer. Jace could see a small ship rising into space decades ago, a human crew standing beside dragons in a hangar. One dragon, smaller and similar to Leary, was placed inside a protective pod. Jace's heart skipped. He recognized it, this must be her hatchling pod. Leary stepped closer, and when she touched the fragment, a surge of energy ran through her body. Images exploded in her mind, flames and shadows, people and dragons, a massive battle that she had no memory of. She roared, not in anger but in recognition. She remembered the ship falling, the humans running, and herself being taken from the chaos. Her wings quivered as flashes of her past life poured into her consciousness. Jace watched silently, not wanting to interrupt her. She's remembering, he whispered to himself. The fragment pulsed again, brighter this time, as if acknowledging her awakening. Lyri's eyes glowed, and her scales shimmered like molten gold. For the first time since he found her, Jace could see her understanding forming. She had been part of something important, something more than just survival in the desert. Jace knelt beside her. Lyri, you were part of a ship carrying knowledge, plans, things meant to help life across the galaxy, he explained gently. You were supposed to guard it. The ship was attacked, abandoned, and you were lost. But now you remember, you are the key. Lyri blinked, then roared, shaking her head as if trying to clear confusion, but the memory stayed. The desert around them seemed to hold its breath. Jace knew they were not alone. Scavengers could still be nearby, drawn by the energy of the fragment. But Lyri did not notice them. Her focus was entirely on the memories, on the realization of who she was. Flames flickered from her mouth as her excitement and awakening energy surged. The fragment pulsed in harmony with her heartbeat, glowing brightly between them. Jace studied the projections more closely. He saw humans and dragons working together, preparing for a conflict that had left scars across the galaxy. Lyri's presence had been crucial, though she had no memory until now. She had been the guardian of knowledge, meant to protect it until the right time. The fragment had been guiding her back to her purpose all along. A sudden gust of wind swept through the ruins, carrying with it sand and dust. Lyri roared again, stronger now, her wings stretching fully as if embracing the desert. The fragment floated slightly above the console, glowing like a small sun. Jace could feel the energy radiating from it, and he realized that the secret was not just in the fragment. It had been inside Lyri all along. She was alive with it and now she knew. She's ready, Jace said quietly, a mixture of relief and pride in his voice. Ready to take back what's hers, and to protect it. Lyri looked at him, golden eyes blazing, and nudged his hand. It was her way of acknowledging him, of showing that she trusted him completely. The bond between human and dragon had deepened in ways that words could not describe. Suddenly, a sound echoed across the dunes. Scavenger drones, drawn to the fragment's energy, appeared again. Jace tensed, but Lyri did not panic. She spread her wings wide and let out a roar that shook the metal ruins. Flames flickered along her mouth, wings, and tail. The drones faltered, sparks flying from their circuits. Lyri turned to Jace, nudged him toward the exit, and together they moved through the wreckage, energy pulsing, memories flowing, and purpose clear. They reached a cliff overlooking the desert, catching their breath. Jace looked at Lyri, seeing her golden scales shimmer with life and power. You remember now, he said softly. The ship, the people, your role, everything. Lyri nudged the fragment, which floated gently in the air, still glowing, still alive. It was as if the object was smiling, finally reunited with its guardian. As the sun set, casting the desert in fiery orange and deep purple, Jace realized something. This was not just a dragon awakening to her past. It was a reminder that even lost things could find their way, that purpose could survive time, war, and distance. Lyri was no longer just a creature lost in the desert, she was a protector, a key to secrets that could change the galaxy. They camped under the stars that night. Lyri curled beside Jace, her body warm and powerful. The fragment pulsed softly between them like a heartbeat. Jace felt a calm he had not felt in years. The secret had been revealed, and now the journey could continue with purpose, trust, and strength guiding them forward. Tomorrow he knew would bring new challenges. There would be dangers, people who wanted the fragment, and mysteries still buried in the desert. But for now, human and dragon sat together, connected by memory, trust, and the awakening of something far greater than themselves. Lyri had found her past, and with it, the power to shape the future. The desert of Zephyr 9 was silent except for the crackle of their small fire. Stars glittered above like distant memories, and Jace and Lyri knew that the secret of the forsaken ship was no longer lost. It had returned to its guardian, and the galaxy would never be the same. The morning on Zephyr 9 was cool and quiet, the desert bathed in soft pink and gold light. Jace Rylan rose first, checking on Lyri. She was awake, stretching her wings wide, the golden scales gleaming in the sunrise. The fragment hovered nearby, pulsing gently, a steady rhythm that matched her heartbeat. For the first time, the desert felt alive with purpose. Jace could see that Lyri had fully embraced her awakening. She was no longer lost, no longer a creature of fear and confusion. She was ready. They moved from the ruins of the forsaken ship carefully, scanning the desert for signs of danger. The scavengers who had been drawn to the fragment were still out there, but Jace felt confident in Lyri's strength now. She moved with a grace and power that amazed him, every step sure, every glance alert. The fragment pulsed more strongly when she walked, as if acknowledging her return to her role. Jace had no idea what would happen if they reached the right location, but he knew one thing. Lyri was meant to protect this secret and nothing would stop her. They traveled across sand dunes and rocky canyons, the desert stretching endlessly around them. Jace glanced at Lyri as she leapt over jagged rocks with ease, her wings flaring slightly for balance. "You're incredible," he whispered. She turned her head, golden eyes meeting his for a brief moment, then moved ahead again, the fragment floating between them, leading the way. The energy from it was almost like a voice, guiding them toward a hidden valley he had never noticed before. The valley appeared suddenly, hidden behind a ridge. It was lush compared to the desert, green patches of grass and small pools of water reflecting the sky. Jace and Lyri descended carefully, sensing that this place was different, safe. In the center lay the remains of another part of the ship, larger than the ruins they had explored before. Panels of gleaming metal rose from the sand, untouched by scavengers, covered in symbols and lines of energy that glowed softly. "This is it," Jace said, awe in his voice. "This is where everything begins." Lyri stepped forward, the fragment pulsing brighter in response. She sniffed the ground, then nudged a section of the ship with her snout. Energy spread along the metal, and a faint hum filled the air. The symbols glowed more strongly, forming images in the air, maps of the galaxy, records of knowledge, and designs for technologies long forgotten. Jace watched, amazed. This was what had been waiting for Lyri all these years. Lyri roared softly, a sound that carried across the valley, announcing her presence. Jace could see her understanding deepening. She was not just a dragon, not just a survivor. She was a guardian, chosen to protect something greater than herself. The fragment floated beside her, almost like a guide, pulsing with approval. Jace realized that the secret of the ship was never just about technology or knowledge. It was about hope, survival, and trust, the very qualities Lyri now embodied. Hours passed as they explored the hidden ship. Lyri moved confidently, her golden eyes scanning the symbols, her claws brushing over the metal gently. The fragment glowed steadily, responding to her presence, reacting as if the ship itself recognized its guardian. Jace examined the projections, seeing visions of humans and dragons working together to protect knowledge, to help life spread across the galaxy. The fragments of memory he had pieced together before were now complete, and he understood the full story. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, the sky turned brilliant shades of red and purple. Jace and Lyri stood together at the center of the ship remains. He looked at her, proud and amazed. "You found your purpose," he said softly. "You're not just a dragon who survived. You're a protector. And I get to be part of it too." Lyri nudged his hand gently, a silent agreement. She had no words, but the gesture spoke louder than any voice. A sudden movement caught Jace's attention. A small group of scavengers had spotted the glowing energy from the ship and were approaching. He tensed, but Lyri did not panic. She spread her wings wide, the golden light of her scales reflecting the last rays of the sun. Flames flickered from her mouth, bright and controlled. The scavengers froze, realizing too late that they were facing not just a dragon, but a guardian. Lyri moved with precision and strength, driving the scavengers back without harming them seriously. The fragment pulsed fiercely, and the energy of the ship seemed to respond to her command. Jace realized that together, dragon and human, they could protect this secret from anyone who might misuse it. The scavengers fled, leaving the valley and the hidden ship in peace. That night, Jace and Lyri camped in the valley, the fragment glowing softly between them. Stars reflected in the pools of water, and the desert beyond was silent. Jace looked at the dragon, feeling a sense of completion. She had found her past, her purpose, and a future that mattered. He had helped her discover it, and in doing so, had become more than just a traveler in the desert. He had become a guardian too, not of technology or knowledge, but of trust, hope, and the bond between species. "You're ready, Lyri," Jace said quietly. "The galaxy doesn't know it yet, but it will. You're not alone anymore." Lyri nudged the fragment again, and it pulsed gently as if agreeing. The desert, the hidden valley, the abandoned ship, all of it was now part of her story, part of a greater mission that would shape the future. As they settled down, the wind whispered through the valley. Jace felt a calmness he hadn't felt in years. They had survived the desert, faced danger, and uncovered a secret long hidden. Together, human and dragon were guardians of the forgotten, protectors of knowledge and hope. The journey was far from over, but for the first time, Jace knew that they could face whatever came next. The stars shone over Zephyr 9 that night, reflecting off Lyri's scales and the fragment's gentle glow. The desert was quiet but alive with possibility. A dragon who had been lost for decades now had a purpose, and a human who had wandered alone had found meaning. Together they had become something greater than either could have imagined. A bond, a story, and a promise to protect the forgotten secrets of the galaxy. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new dangers, and new mysteries. But Jace and Lyri would face them as they had faced everything else, together. The fragment pulsed one last time that night, steady and calm, and the desert of Zephyr 9 held its breath, waiting to see what the Guardians of the Forgotten would do next.